Welcome back to Season 3 of ASD Market Week's podcast, Let's Talk a Little Shop. With your host, me, Emily Lewis. We're going to tackle the hard subjects. So buckle up and get ready for Season 3. We're going to have a lot of fun. All right, welcome back to ASD Market Week's podcast, Let's Talk a Little Shop. Today, I have Emily Benson, who's not only an author of several books, The Ultimate Boutique Handbook and The Retail Mindset, which I believe was #1 on Amazon for a time. She's also the founder of an educational platform called the Boutique Training Academy. Now, the Boutique Training Academy is a series of solution-focused training programs. That's a mouthful. But essentially, Emily, what you do is you help boutique owners start, grow, and most importantly, scale their business. And I think you are a self-proclaimed retail nerd. So did I cover it all?
I think you got most of it. I just want to talk about retail all day. And you're right. I think solutions are what everyone needs right now in retail. So I'm excited to be here because I like to talk a little shop. So we'll go.
Well, 100%. I am so glad that you're here. Now, I do want to go back to the retail mindset. It was #1 on Amazon. That's
both. Yeah. So both books have hit #1 for like when they launched, which is amazing because I actually launched the Retail Mindset the same week I moved into our new house and had a baby. So
wow.
It was a really weird week, but we did hit #1 on Amazon. And actually, the first book I wrote in 2015, The Ultimate Boutique Handbook, that book has the most reviews on it of any retail industry book. And so I like to say it's the #1 how to start a boutique business book in the world because your reviews are always based on how many units you sell. So if we have over 350, 4.7 average reviews, then I think I'm a bestseller. But yeah, both my books are meant to be just really accessible for people, ways for them to learn about, they're both under $20 if you get the paperback. So they're really easy ways to tap into just another perspective on retail and boutiques and how to really survive, honestly, because that's, I think, the name of the game these days.
Yes. Well, I want to dive into not only the company you started, the Boutique Training Academy. I do want to dive into the books and your background. But first and foremost, I want to learn a little bit about you because I always like to learn a little bit more about the guests that we have on the podcast. I heard that you were a mom. So for all those out there that heard that, just FYI, you should think about hiring moms because this girl launched a book at the same time she was having a baby, at the same time she was moving into a new house. So only a mom could do that, period.
Listen, it was not a good choice. It was, I wouldn't, 0 out of 10 would not recommend. It's a really hard week.
Yeah.
But 2 years later, we've recovered. So yes, I agree with you. Becoming a mom makes you just so much more flexible, which is what I think we all need as retail store owners.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? How did you fall into this industry? Because I feel like we all kind of fall into the industry, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I grew up outside Boston, Massachusetts in a very small town called Westford. And from there, I studied a lot of graphic design. Our high school actually was kind of advanced and they had cool computers. Now, I'll just say I'm 41. So we were on the cusp of that. Computers were new in middle school for us, we did have a great tech department. So I got really actually into graphic design. And that was sort of my first artistic venture into fashion and retail, because I think no matter what in retail, you have to be good with trends and have an eye, right? Yeah. So I started with that. And then I went to Syracuse University where I studied surface pattern design. And that's kind of where I got into more fashion fabric. So while all the other women were designing carpets and wallpaper, I was like, no. I want to do dress fabric. I want to do pant material. I was really into pattern for fabric. That was my concentration. So that was a huge piece of me then moving on and working at Abercrombie and Fitch right out of college. So they have an incredible program. I don't know if they still do, but a merchant training program. You can
Yeah.
they hire you to work there. A bunch
Yeah.
of companies have it for sure.
Yeah. Gap used to have a big program like that too.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. I think Target might also, but I know bigger companies have it because they want you to learn their way and their
Yeah.
culture. And I mean, I was a 21, 22-year-old like art student who went to work at this retail company. And listen, I passed the math test. Like, I was vetted, I was supposed to be there. But everyone around me was like from an economic background or psychology or something else. So I just from that day, I realized that to be a good retailer, to be a good merchant, you have to also be artistic because the
Mm.
numbers are a huge piece of it. And we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But if you're not selling things that people want, that are attractive, that, will sell, like that's the biggest problem. Right.
Yeah.
So I think for me, combining sort of my love of art and design and color and texture, material, all of that, and putting it against becoming an assistant merchant at this big retail
Mhm.
company was such a good fit for me because I got to really understood how things sell. And that was I love Syracuse. I love that school. I will never say anything bad about it. But I think a lot of art programs and fine art programs they don't teach you how to sell. Like, they
Yeah.
don't teach
Yeah.
you the economics of, like, are you making something that will actually sell to a
Yeah.
customer, you know?
Yeah. 100%. And even as an art student, you might not be directly selling, but you got to sell yourself. Everyone has to sell themselves on an interview to companies within your career. So that's a really good point. Like, the art students still need to know how to sell.
Well, and honestly, like, you could lock yourself in a room and create a bunch of art that you think is amazing, but other people don't, and how
Yeah.
do you survive? Like, that's the starving artist mentality, right? So,
Yeah.
I think you have to, as any kind of artist, any kind of designer, have that spirit of, "Is this gonna sell? Like, who would this sell to? For how much?" And really think it through because I think that I, like, knew that was what had to happen after school, but there was never a class that was like, "Hey, you made this art," and, like, again, this was 20 something years ago, so this
Yeah.
could have been changed, but
Yeah.
when I was there, it was a really beautiful program where we got to express ourselves and understand how to solve problems through design and all this stuff, but I did feel like going to the Abercrombie training program and being an assistant merchant was like almost a fashion grad school for me. Like, when I think about going back to, like, getting a graduate degree, I'm like, "No, I kind of got, like I kind of
Yeah.
got that education in real life," and so
Yeah.
getting paid to learn that was, like, the best. I would recommend it to anyone that wants to get into retail merchandising, allocation, buying, planning, like, all that stuff. It's such a nice path into retail and fashion.
Okay. And so, can you explain to those who might not know what does an assistant merchant do?
Okay. So, yes, that's a great question. So, we always talked about the merchant role in the middle of a wheel. So,
Okay.
you're in the middle of this wheel of basically product development and delivery. So, you're going to each of the spokes off of you being the center, like, part of the wheel is a partner. So you might have a partner in a design, like you have a designer, you have a planner, you have an allocator, you have someone who helps you with sourcing materials, someone who helps you ship the goods into the country and make sure you're paying the right taxes and filing the right forms on it.
Mhm.
You aren't expected to figure out all of that yourself, but you are expected to keep the wheel moving through each
Okay.
season. So like my department was girls accessories. So
Okay. Okay.
kids specifically, and I was in charge of, like, flip-flops, bags, leggings. At one point, we did arm warmers and leg warmers because they trended, so, like,
I
I've
mean,
done some silly departments.
leave it up to Abercrombie though, and I guarantee you they
So
probably flew off the shelf.
they did, and I
Yeah.
guarantee you they're, like, coming back this year or next year because it's,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
about that time, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
For sure.
so it was a really fun department because I got to bring out my artistic side and develop all these different materials. But someone who's in the knits department, they're just looking at the assortment from a knit top
Yeah.
perspective, right? So
Yeah.
it's a little bit different, but that merchant is the one who starts from the plan for the season a year out
Okay.
and gets the product from sketch to markdown. So you are moving that product through the retail cycle and you're understanding how basically you can hit your sales goal and make a profit for the company through managing all these pieces and parts, not only for one season that's a year away, but whatever season you're currently in, whatever season is shipping, whatever season is getting final
Yeah.
design approvals, right?
Yeah.
Like you're working on a year at a time. And honestly, it was such a good education because I understand when you stand in a retail store, I fully respect how that thing got there because
Yeah.
so many pieces and parts and trucks and boats were part of its journey to there. So the
Yeah.
merchant is the person that really keeps the wheel moving. And I like to say, the idea of it goes from sketch to markdown, that's the merchant's job, which is huge. And I think also translates into owning a retail store because so
Yeah.
many people listening are probably thinking, wow, I do a lot of that too. Maybe not to the
Yeah.
detail, but I think so many of the retailers that are probably listening are thinking about, you're right. I'm thinking about what's on the floor now. I'm thinking about what's shipping. I'm thinking about what's coming in 2 seasons, right? So
Yeah.
that's the hardest part, I think, about being a merchant or store owner or, it's kind of all the same, but that's the hardest part.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's almost like, to your point, a boutique owner's 101 in being a merchant, especially boutique owners, which nowadays they are in droves doing private label. And, they really are touching the design process so much more nowadays to create something that's different from their neighbor across the street in their store. So that really is the best education you could have gotten. And with one of the top retailers at that time. I mean, Abercrombie was everything. So
It was everything. I mean, the stock price, I think when I was there was at like 63 or $70. Like it was incredibly high. It was the time of like the Hills, Team
yeah,
Kristen, Team Lauren t-shirts, like it was the
yeah,
heyday. And like, listen, I get excited because Abercrombie's coming back. Like they have new leadership. It's really shifted the mindset over there. So I get excited because I think it's such a nostalgic, historic brand.
yeah,
But it needed a little extra life sort of in the
yeah,
2010s.
yeah.
So, I think it got
Okay,
it back.
so you're in your 20s, you're getting literally boutique owners 101, being an assistant merchant at Abercrombie. How do you go from that to writing two top selling books, owning your own boutique training academy? What is that road like?
It's long, first of all. Well, here's the thing. So, I went on to work for other companies as a merchant. So, I worked for Henry Bendel. I did some projects for Victoria's Secret, like their pink line.
Hmm.
And then I was at Club Monaco and Delia's. So, I worked my way through retail merchandising at a corporate level for most of my 20s.
Okay.
And at Delia's, I got brought down to HR and told like, "Hey, so like don't come back on Monday." Like my department was doing terribly and Delia's closed like 2 years later, a year and a
Okay.
half later. So I was like, they had to get rid of accessories first. Fine. It doesn't carry the company.
Wow. Yeah.
But I sat there and I said, "Listen, like this is great." I said, I have been wanting to start my own business called The Fashion Truck. I've been doing all this research and like looking at fashion trucks here in Manhattan and seeing what they're doing and how they're doing it. And cool, like okay, I'll figure it out. And so yeah, I like something came over me in that room, but I knew I wanted to start my own thing and having been in corporate for like 7, 8 years at that point, I was just sick of men telling me what I should buy for women in the store and what was good and what was bad. And I'm not a corporate girly. So like I think
Okay. No,
my time was like short-lived. It was fairly positive, but I knew I was like gonna do my own thing at some point.
it's
So
impressive in your 20s though that you realize that, because I do think for a lot of us it takes into our 30s or maybe even your 40s, or and people feel like, oh, I'm behind. And obviously no one's behind. Everybody's timeline is so different. But it is impressive that in your 20s you A, realize I want to be an entrepreneur, and B, I know what suits my personality or my strengths or my weaknesses in terms of the work environment that I want.
Thank you for saying that because to be very, very honest with you, there were just so many mean girls in retails. And between
Yeah.
that and the like men telling me what to do, it just felt like I was never really happy at work. Like I had coworkers that I loved, like we'd sneak out for lunch, go to Grand Central and like eat oysters, but like
Yeah.
it was not an easy job, and the hours are hard, and I mean, in corporate retail, I mean, coming up on Thanksgiving while we're recording this, like, I would book the last train out of New York on Wednesday night because, like, I had to be in the office, and then I probably had to come back on Friday and be there, through the weekend, so
Yeah.
it's not an easy job, but I will say, I think that between so I think I was meant to leave because I just knew I didn't fit in, and, like, that was okay, and here's the other way to look at it, right? So, I always think, yes, people are, like, braver in their 30s and 40s to start, but, like, I had
Yeah.
nothing to lose, honestly, Emily.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I had, like, a gym membership, like, my lease was almost up, I could, like, sublet it, I didn't have a car living in
Right.
Manhattan, like, I had, like, a couch and a bed, so it was
Yeah.
it was, like, a good situation and, like, kind of the perfect timing.
Okay, so you just got laid off. How many days or weeks until you're out buying a truck and fixing up a truck?
So, okay, I got laid off January 6th, January 9th, somewhere around there. I bought the truck in April and I
Okay.
launched in
Okay.
June. Like, my
Okay.
first events were in June. So I was very quick.
Okay.
I, like,
Wow.
knew what I had done the research before, like, and so now I had all this time because I was laid off.
Okay.
You
It
know, I had
happens
all
to
this
the
time
best
to
of us.
actually
We've
work on my
all been
business.
there. We've all been there, especially
It's
post
crazy.
COVID. I don't know any stories, especially in our industry. So yeah.
Right, it's crazy, and to be honest with you, I think also I just kind of, like, I just knew I wanted to do my own thing, and I
Yeah.
knew that this was the time. I knew if I didn't do it soon, I would just get stuck in New York and, like, work my way up and, like, be a vice president of something, and the people from Marshalls are seeing, it's a big retail town too, so, like, people are noticing, like, "What is this thing?" And I called it the fashion truck, like, I wasn't
Yeah.
stupid, I was like,
Yeah.
"No one knows what this is, they know what food trucks are, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
call it a fashion truck," and then that's, like, a no-brainer, you know?
You were ahead of the SEO curve because that's
I
such a
was.
good SEO, like the fashion truck. That's going to kill the SEO right there. It's going to be great.
Right? Well, and, like, this was even I mean, I wish I was that smart then, but, like, I feel like this was before the internet, Emily, like,
Yeah.
I joke,
Yeah.
but, like, I remember having my Facebook business page and being, like, so excited I hit 100, like, likes. It was, like, 50 people from my family. But, like, I also think it was a really beautiful time to start because
Yeah.
there wasn't, like, the internet and there wasn't social media and, like,
Yeah.
it was really pure still, and it didn't feel like I had all this competition the way I feel like a lot of people starting now feel like, "Oh, it's so saturated," or, "Oh, there's so much
Yeah.
competition."
Yeah.
I just honestly stayed in my lane. I was like, "Where can I park? Who's gonna, like, believe in me and this weird idea?" And then honestly, like, I just wanted to sell cute clothes. Like, I started out with, like, a wild assortment with, like, fascinators and all this, like, chunky chain jewelry, which was not Boston, like, at
Yeah.
all. So,
So
you
let's
know
talk about that though. You started out and you're buying.
yeah.
What did you learn in those first few months? You're bringing chunky chain jewelry that you're like, this is not Boston. I'm imagining it didn't sell. You had to mark it down.
Yeah, of course. I mean, not even mark it down, Emily. Like, that stuff is, like, probably in a box in my parents' basement. You know what I mean? Like, some of that stuff was just bad, and it would have worked in New York, Like, I had
Yeah.
just come from living in New York for many years, and I
Yeah.
just had to kinda get into the nautical Boston aesthetic of, like,
Yeah.
I need to be a combo of, like, J. Crew and Anthropologie,
Yeah.
like, and that worked for me, and honestly, like, that was kind of, like, a fun style to buy, and I always said I would wear everything that I bought, even though some of it, like, wouldn't look good on me or fit me,
Okay.
but, like, I really was intense about buying tight, and part of that was from my obviously experience for so many
Mhm.
years in corporate,
Mhm. Mhm.
but also in a truck, you only have 100 square feet.
Yes.
So, the best of the best merch has to be front and center all the time. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't have a back room. There was
Yeah.
no storage, right? I say to people all the time, if you're gonna open a store, start small because you get to make
Mm.
mistakes without breaking the bank, and I think that was the big thing for me was I just did what I did in corporate retail, but I
Yeah.
did it in a truck, and I did it for Boston people, like women only,
Okay.
Boston area, right? So, it's, like, super hyper local in terms of style, in terms of marketing, all that stuff. But man, like driving that truck, like driving it on the highway in traffic, like rush hour. I mean, it I talk about how wonderful it is and how much fun it was, and it was, like, very I don't know if I could do it now that I'm 40. Like, it was just really physically
Yeah,
intensive, I'm
yeah,
moving generators in and out, like, because also part of it too, to be honest with you, was, like, I was kind of a pioneer in this industry being like, how do
yeah,
you get power in a truck when you wanna,
yeah,
like, not call and
yeah,
pay $10,000 for someone who's
yeah,
qualified to do this, you know?
yeah,
How do you get heat in there? How do you get air conditioning in there? Like, what days can I not work because it's too hot inside of a metal box, you know?
yeah,
So, it was, like, a really cool way again, like, I feel like it was my second graduate degree of, like, how
yeah,
do you
yeah,
actually run a business? And, like,
yeah.
that has to pay you that, like, I joke, like, "I wanna move out of my parents' house." Like, "No, I can't give you a discount," you know?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
like, and at the same time, like, it was so much fun to, like, kinda blow people's minds where, like, I drive this huge truck and then I jump out in this, like, cute dress or, like, a cute
yeah,
outfit, and people are like, "What the heck is this?" Like, "This is
yeah,
so crazy." So, I spent, like, 4 or 5 years doing that. I did, like, 200 to 250 events, a year with the truck, private parties,
wow,
like, events,
wow,
markets. No, I was, like, on the road. I was on the streets. And then
wow,
I opened a brick and mortar in my hometown, which,
okay,
good, bad, who knows? Like, I talk about all the time how it was the wrong location. Like, it was the wrong location. It was the wrong ideal customer. I switched it up on myself. And, like, again, in hindsight, you can see that so clearly. In the
yes,
moment, I was just like, this was the spot I always wanted to have a brick and mortar when I was in high school. Like, that would be so cool. Like, being a little shop girly, like coming down from my apartment upstairs, making a coffee. Like,
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I think I just watched too much, like, You've Got Mail, and her, like, little bookshop, like, but, like, that's what I thought it would be, and
yeah,
honestly, like, it wasn't that. It was
yeah,
great, and I will never regret opening a brick and mortar because I, again, learned so much,
yeah,
but
same,
what I
same.
Right,
It's
yes,
a
you open a brick
grind,
and mortar too, but it's its
yeah,
own
same,
world, like,
same,
you have to enjoy being in the store, you have to
yes,
be patient, like,
yes,
going from the truck to being like, "Okay, I'm getting up, I'm driving, I'm going, I'm selling, I'm selling, I'm selling, I'm driving
yeah,
home."
yeah,
To
yeah,
go somewhere and sit and just be like, "Maybe I sell, maybe I do"
yeah.
like, it
I don't think
was
people understand how much of a grind retail is and how hard it is. And like you, I I had a store at one point too, and I started very similarly. I started doing pop-ups. So everything I bought essentially had to fit into X amount of racks that I could easily pop up and in my car. And so it was like I did literally every week it would be like 4 or 5 pop-ups and then finally just gained got my clientele and my customer base and then opened a brick and mortar. And it was absolutely not what I thought. I loved every minute of it, but so many mistakes. So many mistakes. I wish I had the boutique training academy back then, and I probably would have not made all these mistakes. But okay, so you're in an actual physical space now. Are you doing
yeah,
the truck at all, or is the truck completely done?
I'm still doing the truck, and
Okay,
honestly, I started to add, like, some pop-ups too where, like, the truck wouldn't fit, so I'd, like, send a
okay,
girl to an event, and, like,
yeah.
I had employees. It was getting really complicated, to be honest with you, and I got really depressed. Like,
Oh,
I talk about it at the beginning of the Retail Mindset book. I
okay.
was just, like, so depressed. Like, again, like, coaching, consulting, like, there wasn't people out there, and I think this is now what drives me is, like, there really wasn't people out there that knew what I was going through, could help me, were accessible,
Mm,
and I just kind of was like, "I don't wanna do this anymore." Like,
yeah,
this isn't fun. I started it to have it be fun. I'm not enjoying it, and I think a big part of me also was just kind of tired of the retail cycles in the sense of, like, I had now been selling products for, like, 12 years, and it was like, I was just kinda like, "Oh my god," like, if I
yeah,
have to go to another market, and again,
yeah,
all of these things are so fun, but they had become not fun to me. Like, I was
yeah,
fully just really disconnected from my purpose, really disconnected from, you know, being happy, and then it affected my money. Like, I just wasn't making as much money because I wasn't into it anymore, and
yeah.
I kinda just slowly put myself out of business, to be honest, and, like, decided that, like, this wasn't the path for me, and honestly, even at the end, my husband said to me, he was like, "Well, do you wanna just move the store? Like, we know it's the location. We know that's the problem. Do you wanna, like, move to another town or to another plaza, whatever?" And I was like, honestly, like, I know, like, I'm just
Yeah.
done. Like, I'm
Yeah.
done. I
Need
can't,
a
I
break. Yeah.
call me 2 years ago, like, call me a year and a half ago when I was kinda, starting to not feel great. I'm, like, in the depths of, like, I'm just not happy with my life right now. I need
Yeah.
something different. I need something to be excited about. And I think that's also, to be honest with you, most retailers are really creative people. Like we kind of need projects. I
Yeah.
find even some of my clients that hit that like 5 to 7 year mark, like it really is a 7 year itch where it's kind of like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, what's next? Like I've mastered this." Like most people that start businesses are pretty creative. And so,
Yeah.
I don't I always expect people to close their stores or sell their stores because they're gonna move on to something bigger and better, you know?
Yeah.
So,
So, okay, so you decide to close your store. What's next?
yeah, so I had been teaching this webinar through an association for mobile retailers for a couple years. So, like, monthly, I do this little webinar. I'd have, like, 3 people on it, and we just had fun. Like, I taught about how to run a retail store, and they were all mobile, so it was really unique in that sense too. But I said I have been getting all these emails now too. So I had
Okay.
like been in publications, like, people are kind of finding out who I am. Again, I have the like good SEO name website.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I start getting emails of people saying like, "How are you running your boutique? Like, I need help. I'm not successful. I want to start a boutique. I want, they're asking all these questions." And I wrote the Ultimate Boutique Handbook and I
Wow.
published it myself a few months later. Like my husband has
Okay.
published books before himself, so he was like, "Emily, let's just do this." And it
Yeah.
went on Amazon and, like, I mean, we've sold probably close to 10,000 books of that, like, in about 8
Wow.
years, which, like, we would like it to be better, but, like, it's a good selling book, for being so
Yeah.
niche-y.
Yeah.
And that's what really started me consulting was, okay, I have now a book that I can speak to. This was when like online space was starting to get bigger with like coaching, consulting. So I was like,
Yeah.
all right, let me like ride this wave for a little bit. And that's what started Boutique Training Academy. It was really the book. And at the same time I was selling the book, I was selling my truck to someone else. I was closing a
Yeah.
store, like all of this
Yeah.
is kind of happening at the same time. And I said, like, I started to say, okay, I want to have some clients that I want to help grow their business.
Yeah.
And I had 5 clients. 3 were mobile boutiques.
Okay.
One was a health coach and one was an artist. And they were like friends that I had,
Yeah.
known from around town. But I knew then that I was like, okay, I need to help boutiques and specifically like mobile at first. And then I kind of expanded over time. But that's really how Boutique Training Academy was born was the idea that I was confused at how people didn't know what they were doing in their retail store, and
Yes.
part of it was, like, I was just dumb, like, I thought everyone that opened a boutique or a retail store, like, worked in corporate retail or had retail experience before, I was
Yeah.
like, "Why would you do
Yeah.
it if you don't have experience?" Like, that
Yeah.
didn't make sense. And so what I've realized is like the people that want to open retail stores are generally like hairstylists, stay-at-home
Yeah.
parents,
Yeah.
real estate agents that like want to do something else, they're people who become experts in an area and they're like, okay, I want to open, a garden center or a hardware store because I was a contractor for a
Mhm.
long time, whatever. So they don't have the retail education that they need to be
Yeah.
successful, right? So that's really what Boutique Training Academy does, is it provides a professional level training to retail and boutique owners where like we help people really grow and scale and honestly start, I think if you
Yeah.
can start with a solid foundation and understand retail fundamentals and the basics of retail, you're good, like
Yeah.
you're set up, right? How to plan an assortment, how to price well, how to find your ideal customer, all that stuff. We package that up into nice little courses and make it really easy for people to follow along and kind of design their own business plan. So,
I love that. I love that.
yeah, it was a natural transition. It was weird. I mean, just happened. Again, I think everything I just fall into or fall off the cliff into.
No, I love that statement though that your sister said. I mean, I see it as a compliment because I think we're very similar in that way. And we've talked about this, offline and in meetings. But I guess when you started the boutique training academy, what did you find was the biggest misconception of owning a boutique or a retail store?
Okay. I think this, especially now, still rings true. I think
Okay.
people think that if they have this perfect polished brand and they're posting on social media all the time, that they'll make sales.
Okay.
While I think a lot of that is true, I also am a big proponent of understanding your product assortment and
Mm-hmm.
having a buying plan and starting there actually. Because I think if your product assortment is off in any way, whether it be price, department, like
Mm-hmm.
focus, ideal customer, the big thing is everyone wants to say like, I have something for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, don't do that. It's like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
out of business before you start, So I
Yeah.
really like to focus with people on what is their product assortment? Are they driving home the categories that are the most profitable and that will sell the most? Because if we're all being honest, it doesn't matter where you post on social media, like if you run ads or not, like all this kind of stuff. If
Yeah.
you have ugly product, no one's gonna buy it. Like it goes back to corporate retail. It goes back to my whole thing of
Yeah.
I'm in college making all this stuff. How does it sell?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I knew up front, oh, I could sell it because I know my ideal customer, I know what they'll pay, I know what they're looking for, I know where else they're shopping, then I can produce a product that is going to fly off the shelves, right? So
Yeah.
to me, most people are focused on the wrong thing. They're not focused
Yeah.
on buying correctly, going to, shows like ASC Market Week and
Yeah.
finding great resources or private labeling, doing the things with their product that are going to really move the needle. They're focused on like, oh, I need to go viral on TikTok. And like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I like what you said. Know your ideal customer. And so you could have in your store what I think is ugly product because again, one man's trash is another's treasure. And I could have in my store what you think is ugly, but it's not about you and I. It's about your ideal customer. And I see that as a big misconception because a lot of people do get into the retail world or owning a retail store of some sorts because they've probably been complimented by their friends on their style, whether it's their home decor or apparel or accessories or whatever it is that they do, and then automatically they think that their style is going to translate into sales, and it does not. And that's a very interesting term to choose, mindset. And I think you have three tenets around, talking about retail mindset. So tell us what those three tenets are and maybe why you chose mindset.
yeah. Well, for me, I always see any retail business, any problem that you have in a retail business comes back to one of three things. It comes back to mindset, margins, or marketing.
Okay.
Margins is just like all the math, the data, the pricing, the hardcore like mathing, the math is mathing, right?
Yes.
Marketing is like a lot of what we've talked about is like, how do you promote your product? How do you find good product that works for your market? All that stuff.
Yes.
Mindset is this thing that is like sort of unspoken about. There is an author, his name is Guy Hendricks, and he wrote a book called The Big Leap. In that book, he says business is ultimately a spiritual path.
Ooh.
Okay, right?
Okay.
So, not getting too much into like religion, spirituality, any of that stuff. It all really is about your own faith in yourself, what
Mm,
you believe is possible or not for yourself, and really
mm,
like the mindset blocks that come up on your path to success. So the person who's starting out is not going to have the same mindset blocks that someone who wants to scale is. It's going
yes.
to be totally different, right? The person who's starting out, their mindset is going to be like, I really want to do this thing. I really want to open this store. I feel so prepared. I'm so passionate. I'm so excited. Da da da.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then they'll have to deal with the imposter syndrome of like, am I good enough to do this? What are my friends and family going to think? Am I good enough to do it? Do I have what it takes? Whereas the person who's scaling, they might be in a spot where like they're making good money
Mm-hmm.
and they still have all this pressure on themselves, or they still
Yeah.
haven't passed off work that needs to get passed off, or,
Yeah.
there, to me, every level is a new devil. Like, the
I
more
love
money,
that.
more
I love that.
problems thing.
Hold on,
Like,
let's stop you there. Every level is a new devil. That's such a good saying.
yeah, well, it's not mine, okay, it's totally from someone else who I don't even know the quotable, but it's right, and I think for me, even, like, going through some of the life stuff I've had to go through the past couple years while
Yeah.
having a business,
Yeah.
that's new levels, new devil. How do I manage having a toddler and a business where I literally work 2 doors down from where she's napping. Like, that's
Yeah.
a whole new mindset challenge of like, how can I manage my time to spend time with her and me, right? So for me, mindset is about the invisible things in your thoughts, in your beliefs, in your actions that are
Right.
holding you back from getting to that next step in your business. So
Yeah.
can we solve your, inventory problems? Can we solve a branding problem? Like,
Yeah.
sure. The
Yeah.
mindset part is something you have to do for yourself. And I
Mm.
think that's why I wanted to write a book about it.
Be sure to subscribe to ASD Market Week's Let's Talk a Little Shop, a podcast that can be found on iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, or Spotify. See you there.